what is Ironman Triathlon?
So Ironman is a triathlon competition. It involves three activities, which is swimming, cycling, and running in that order. Your body is going through different cycles in the three events. Right? When you're in the swim, you are in water. You're feeling refreshed. When you come out, when you're on the bike, you're going at a rapid pace, much more rapid pace on the bike. So it's a mental challenge more than physical challenge, right?
Thank you for tuning in into yet another episode of Goventure podcast. I am Pritesh Kumar, आपका host and co-founder of Functional. मैंने startups बनाए भी हैं and बंद भी किए हैं. Hence, on Goventure podcast, we serve as a friendly reminder on all the things to do to grow and achieve your dreams. Join a group in the description to share stuff and start networking with like-minded folks. So today's episode is the second part of our discussion with Hetal Sonpal, an active angel investor and a fitness freak, right? The stress levels in the startup ecosystem in India are super high. In fact, after a number of shocking reports of fatal heart attacks in the startup community, Nitin Kamal, founder and Zero Take, he talked about कि कैसे health and specifically sleep probably most underrated aspect in the startup world. I think startups now over emphasize करते हैं hustle culture पे and साथ ही साथ miss out कर जाते हैं consistency पे in the long run. So we sit with Hetal to understand his journey of becoming an Ironman triathlon athlete. And yes, before we begin, I want to thank all of our listeners for all the love, all the messages, and all the comments of the podcast and Instagram. So now let's get straight into the episode. Let's come to more of your personal journey. I want to discuss more about some other interesting things that you have done on a personal level, I believe. And you are an Ironman athlete, right? So I want to first get started with the fact that probably you would enlighten our audience about what is Ironman Triathlon.
Okay. Hey, great. Thanks a lot. And every time someone asks me about Ironman, I really do get a bit sentimental about it. Yeah, it's a journey which I'm abundantly proud about. It required a lot of courage, but the fact that I did it obviously gives me a lot of satisfaction. So Ironman is a triathlon competition. It involves three activities, which is swimming, cycling, and running in that order. A full Ironman requires you to do 3.8 kilometers of swimming, 180 kilometers of cycling, and 42.2 kilometers of running, which is like running a full marathon. The idea is to do all three of them back to back. Yes, you can take a bit of a small break in between, but there are individual cutoff times for each activity. So you would have to finish swim in a particular time, finishing swim, and then finishing bike in a particular amount of time. And of course, there's an overall cutoff as well. So overall cutoff typically for most of the events would either be 16 and a half or 17 hours. Individual cutoffs vary across all the competitions. For a very long time, there were about 40 Ironman events happening all across the world. Now the number of cities which host Ironman has expanded. Finally, we have a Ironman event happening in India and Goa, but right now it's only half Ironman and not the full. But I hope that with continued participation by Indians in Ironman events globally, it won't be long before a full Ironman happens in India as well. So yeah, that's the competition.
And what are the individual cutoff times for each of these? I believe 2.5 hours for swimming, something like that.
Yeah, so I participated in Ironman in Kazakhstan in August 2022. The cutoff times for swimming in Astana, which is the place where they do it, was 2:20 for swimming, 10:30 for swim plus bike, and 16 and a half overall. Right, those were the cutoff times. Literally.
Got it. So the idea of, I think, whenever I hear about Ironman, I just get, it's such an unbelievable concept for me, I believe. And I want to understand how does the idea of doing something like a 4 kilometer swim, I believe, right? 4 kilometer swim, full marathon, and and almost 150 kilometers of cycling. How does that idea of doing each of these back to back? Each of these are like a full marathon is probably a massive goal in itself, right? How does the idea of doing each of these back to back come into picture first? Yeah.
So I think basically it's test of human endurance, right? The idea is to do three different activities. It's a trick in itself because since there are three different activities, different parts of your body and different muscles are getting used, right? The only muscle which is common across all the three events is the brain, right? Your mind is totally involved in all the three activities at the same time, right? So it's a mental challenge more than physical challenge, right? And I'm honestly telling you that I find I did a ultra marathon run in April this year. It's called the Two Oceans Ultra, which is a 56K run, right? So
Hmm.
56K is significantly going beyond the full marathon mark. And trust me, I was far more tired and far more in a much more worse shape after completing the 56K Two Oceans Ultra in 6 hours compared to spending 15 hours doing my Ironman for the simple reason because of the variety of activities in Ironman. Your body is going through different cycles in the three events, right? When you're in the swim, you are in water. You're feeling refreshed. It's early in the morning. You go for a swim. When you come out, when you're on the bike, you're going at a rapid pace, much more rapid pace on the bike. Typically, in a bike ride in Ironman, you would be going at 25, 26 kilometer per hour or even more, right? And if it's a typically a nice breezy day, then you're getting a lot of wind on you. Yes, you are exerting yourself in racing the bike for 180 kilometers and doing it for a period of 6 to 7 hours. Yes, it is tiring, but it's not mentally exhausting. You're constantly looking at the watch, timing yourself, but in a long run, and of course then there's a run after that. And the good part is that the way the cutoffs are structured, I had 6 hours plus to finish my full marathon, and at that time my best marathon time was 4:20, right? So
Hmm.
compared to my personal best of 4:20, if I had to finish a marathon in 6 hours, I had enough luxury, and there was no time pressure I had, right? It's not that I was like really short of time and I had to like really run fast. Then I would have exerted myself far more. There's a chance that I would have fallen or I would have injured myself. I would have just given up. But the fact that since I had luxury of time, I could do a walk run combination. I didn't have to like run with a lot of intensity. So that's a big difference there, right? So while they're done back to back, the whole idea, the Ironman as a competition has been around for more than 40 years. It started, I think, in 1978 or 79, right? So it's been around for a long time. Configuration of such events, and there are multiple such events, are just to test human endurance, right? We won't know what's our capacity or capability till we actually test it out. So Ironman gives you that chance to test yourself out, do three activities back to back, and see whether you can do it or not. If you're able to do it once, then go back again and see whether you could do it in a lesser amount of time, look at a different terrain, and so on and so forth, right? So there are many variants in terms of the facets of challenge which can be introduced to keep you going even if you've done the Ironman once.
Got it. And what's the story behind Iron? How did it get started? You mentioned it started in 78, 79. Now it's been almost 40 years now, right?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's a competition which was started with the whole idea of testing human endurance out. I
Mhm.
think triathlon has been around for a while now, right? There are different shorter distance triathlons which are far more popular. Olympics has a Olympic triathlon, which is a different distance. To bring about this particular, and of course, it's not stopped at that, right? You have ultra marathons now, which are even more tougher than this. Ironman happens in one day. Ultra marathon happens in multiple days, right? So the complexity has just kept on going up, and I don't think there is. I think the sky is the limit, right? I mean, you can keep going on till someone is able to do what you set yourself as a goal and target. There will always be people who try and stretch the target as well.
Yeah, I think it reminds me of the 4 minute mile story. So I'm pretty sure you must have heard of it. That
Exactly. Well
there was there was a time that when nobody was able to, when medical science was even convinced that human won't be able to ever run a mile within 4 minutes, right? And then one man ran a mile within 4 minutes, and I think 10 or 11 people ran a mile within 4 minutes
yeah,
within
that's
that
true.
year itself, right? crazy what
Right.
yeah, yeah, and that brings me to
Yeah, that's a perfect
probably
example.
yeah, that brings me to probably a question that I got from people. I think so. I think I was discussing this with this podcast with some of my friends who have been runners and who are running in the Bangalore marathon. I believe Bangalore marathon is on 8th of October. I
8th
believe.
October. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And every runner, what I've understood is that every runner has this dream of doing Ironman sometime, right? And so I collected some queries from these folks. And the first query that came in was mental toughness, right? So how does one
Yeah.
prepare? How does one stay at it?
Honestly, I found meditation to be a great source of mental toughness, right? Um, of course, the common word for meditation is focus, right? You bring your focus towards a particular activity. You try and cut off many distractions in your life, right? You make your schedule much simpler, make your life much more simpler. Uh, Narrow down to the focus for the Ironman for that specific period of time when you're training yourself. Make sure that you set a goal and agenda. Have a training plan. Speak to a coach. Try and understand what kind of preparation you need. Get yourself familiar with the event. Try and find out if you can have friends going along with you. Right. It helps a lot to keep tab on each other. So it's good that you're not preparing for an Ironman all by yourself, but you're preparing with someone else. All those things add on to the mental toughness, right? Once you know that you're not alone, once you have a friend, you start having conversation with your friend with whom you're going, and then you can vet out things. अरे how will I manage this? अरे इसका क्या करना है यार? अच्छा ये कहाँ से मिलेगा? अच्छा इसका ये क्या होता है? Right? The more your questions are being resolved, your mental strength automatically goes up. And of course, the training builds up that momentum as well, right? I mean, it's not that you just go out one fine day and do an Ironman, right? You start with a smaller distance and gradually increase and observe your body, right? And of course, two things go very strongly with any physical endurance training. One is food, the other is sleep, right? You need to ensure that you are eating right as you are preparing because your body is going through a lot more churn. You're expending a lot more energy. You need to fill in more energy. You need to eat the right foods. You need to cut off junk foods for that time period. Ensure that you're eating food at the right time, refueling yourself not just before and after the run, but during the run. What are you having? All those things become very important and very critical in terms of the level of strength you have in you while you're doing the Ironman, right? Sometimes the momentum and motivation is purely guided by what food you are intaking, right? Eat right to do it right. Second one, sleep is very important, right? You need to have adequate amount of rest before and after. It's not that you just finish a long activity and then you go to sleep. How well you sleep before the activity is far more important than whether you sleep after the activity or not, right? To give your body adequate amount of rest between the training periods is very important, right? So while meditation is a straightforward way to strengthen your mind and your resolve for doing an activity, combination of getting to run with someone, do the activity with someone, have a coach, talk to your friends about your problems, be observant on how your body is responding, and to get the fuel right and the sleep right is very important. Yeah. And once you're doing so many activities, you automatically start building that mental endurance. You know that so much is at stake, and the fact that you worked hard automatically builds up your confidence that if I've done so much, nothing drastically can go wrong on last day. And things can always go wrong, right? I think there's no insurance to that. But as long as you prepared well, you'll have that sense of satisfaction that at least you put in your best effort.
I think hearing out Hital, what I was able to understand and was what I was able to relate to is that the process looks pretty much similar for anything significant that you want to do in life, right? Uh, uh,
No doubt.
st- yeah, yeah, it ultimately boils down to endurance and you preparing for it, right? And a lot of hard work, definitely, right? But this the other question that I got from some of these runners, I want to discuss it, and it's a very interesting question. At first, I was not even able to understand the question, right? And the question was that, it's a very interesting question for me. I thought like, how does that work, right? And the question was, how do you trust a counterintuitive process in training, right? I was asked the question for the first time. I was not able to understand what do you mean by counterintuitive process, like, and then someone explained it to me that you have to run slower to be able to run faster. I don't, I'm not sure if I still fully understand that question. But yeah, over to you. I would love to have you explain it a bit.
No, let me elaborate on the example that you shared that you need to run slow to run fast. Um, Endurance is different from sprint. We all know that. And the big difference there is where sprint is short term, endurance is long term, right? And the fact that and Ironman is an endurance event, right? It's not a sprint event, right? You know for a fact that yes, you would want to do it at a certain pace, you would want to do it ASAP, you would want to do it fast. But the fact is that you can't be starting off right off the block at your fastest pace. You'd burn yourself out very fast. So, ability to be able to conserve your energy for the latter half of the event is more important. So, you don't want to expend all your energy right away because of the fact that it's a much longer event than what normal events are. You need to conserve your energy and reserve that energy for the later period when you'd be exhausted, you would be tired mentally, you would be fatigued. At least that energy which you saved initially will work for you. Now, the funny part is there's no concept of saving energy, right? I mean, I don't have a battery inside my mind where I could actually save some energy and use it later. It's all mental, right? It's all about fooling your mind to believe that, oh, just because I ran slow initially, I had saved some energy. Let me just pull out that energy and start using it. The energy is distributed equally all through the race. It's all a mental block. But yeah, counterintuitively, you can fool your mind when it's under pressure. You would not think logically. You would just go by what people tell you, and you would do it, and you would think that, oh yeah, it worked that way. Similarly, for fuel as well, for nutrition as well, you just don't gulp everything down, right? You chew slowly, you have it over a period of time, you nibble food, you allow the food to go gradually into your stomach and get it digested properly. Because if you try to eat a lot immediately while running or while any of the activities, there are chances of you choking, and it can become it can have grave consequences as well. So the whole idea here is to do things with a calm, peace mind, yet not slow, right? Having a calm, peace mind does not mean that you do things slowly. It's just about giving adequate thinking time to every activity, so that you're, taking adequate precaution in everything that you're doing. I think that's the broad idea.
I want to, I think what you said is uh, being able to think peacefully in a calm way and
Yeah.
not slow, right? I think that requires a lot of persistence to get there. I believe a lot of training to get there. I can clearly tell.
Yeah.
Yep, yep. But I want to also, you mentioned briefly about choking and a lot of those risks involved, right? I want to talk a little bit about the scary side of things, right? There have been multiple instances of triathlon athletes collapsing in the event, right? I've seen
Yeah.
athletes crossing the finishing line with on one leg, right, probably limping. Is it hyped or is it common? How scary do you think it is?
So I think there are two instances where things can go wrong. Maybe I'll put three of them, right? The first one is an absolute random unknown, right? Someone had a heart attack while running the Delhi half marathon last year, and very unfortunate, but he passed away, right? Now, let's leave those cases aside, right? Because it's very difficult to um, fine tune. It's very difficult to pinpoint the exact reasons. Of course, later on you can review their lifestyle and try and understand where they went wrong, and was that heart attack building up over a period of time, or was it a sudden or something. But typically two things you need to take care of. One is the training, right? Your training needs to be adequately good enough for such long distance endurance events, right? You need to train yourself right. You need to gradually let your body get used to the amount of effort that you're putting behind the activity. It has to be a sustained effort. You can't just show up early in the morning and do an Ironman, right? There are chances that you would injure yourself. There are grave consequences of you going something wrong. The second one is technical challenges, right? I mean, you bumped into someone, you slipped, uh, you had a bike malfunction, your bike did not come to the venue on time, the brake was not checked, there was not enough air in the tire, and so on and so forth. Those are technical challenges which you learn over a period of time through experience and by talking to people, right? So that's why I said it's very important to have more of a collaborative preparation plan in place, right? Talk to people who are not participating, but hey, you ask 10 people, 9 people will tell you, make sure that your air pressure in your bike is right, right? They might not be participating, they might not have ridden a bicycle ever, but they would understand that's something which which they would want you to take care of, right? It's not that you would forget about it, but if someone doubly ensuring that you do that is a better and a more of a secure way of ensuring that that's not missed out on, right? So those are the broad things, right? Obviously, physical endurance test everyone out, and everyone has a certain limit. It's possible that you might crack that limit, you might not be able to achieve that limit on that particular day, and something unfortunate might happen. But that's life, you know. You can die of a heart attack while you're sleeping, so you will not stop sleeping, right? You'll just be cautious of the fact that you don't want to sleep in a position or not be in a state of mind which can lead you to a heart attack. That's something which you can prevent. Even if after doing that, if you do have an heart attack, God forbid, you can't help that. Yeah. So that's a broad idea. These events do have their risk. You need to understand your body. You need to understand your limitations and work within those limitations. Being a superhero is not advisable. You just have one life to live, and it's okay, man, if you don't do an Ironman. Nobody's going to look down upon you just because you didn't do an Ironman. So don't stretch to the limit where you know that your limit could be broken. I think that's what I would say.
Hmm. I think, Hetal, you did your Ironman last year, right? August 2022, you mentioned, right? And
Yeah.
how much time do you think, when did you start training for the event?
So my training schedule is not the optimum training schedule. So listeners can listen to it, but please don't ape it because I did training for roughly exactly about 2 months, right? So the event was in August. So June and July, I had about 9 weekends, and weekends are where you get all your long runs and long bike rides possible. So I would spend Monday to Friday in the gym, uh, core strengthening, uh, weightlifting, and very rigorous HIIT and other workouts in the gym on Monday to Friday. Only on Saturday and Sunday, I would do the combination of swim, bike, and run. And we are called bricks, which is a combination of two of those activities. So I would do a swim, then get on a bike, or I would do a bike ride and then get on the and start running, right? So during these 9 weekends, I would have probably done about 29 kilometers of swimming, all inclusive. I would have done about 830 or 850 kilometers of cycling and 230 kilometers of running just during these 2 months across the 9 weekends. So obviously, I try to pack a lot. It's not an optimum way. Ideally, I would recommend that you probably start 4 months in advance. I did in 2 months, but starting 4 months in advance and starting with smaller distance and gradually building up your stamina is a far better way to prepare for an Ironman than doing it in 2 months the way I did it.
Mm. And you have been into trading for quite a bit, I believe, right? Even before Ironman.
Yeah, so I've been running since 2013, 2014. 2013 ADHM was my first half marathon ever. So I've been running since then. I picked up cycling as an activity for my half Ironman, which I did in Delhi, in Talkotara Stadium in February 2019. So I seriously took on cycling just around that time. I didn't have a bike. I used a rental bike to do the half Ironman. Swimming is something which I've been doing since I was age 6, right? Thanks to my mother, she took me to a swimming pool in Bhopal where I grew up. and got me to learn swimming. So I've been swimming since then. Though of course I've not done long distance swimming before I got into this, but I always felt that I had good stamina as far as swimming is concerned. My technique is not good. My daughter's a national level swimmer, and she laughs at my style of swimming. But I have stamina, and sometimes stamina beats style, right? If you have that stamina for a sustained period of time, which is required by the competition, if I'm able to do the distance within the time limit, then I'm good, right? Yeah, if I improve my style, I'll probably be able to reduce 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. But I've not reached that stage as yet in Ironman where I'm trying to really like cut out 30 seconds from here, 1 minute from here, 2 minutes from here. I've not reached that stage as yet, but when I do, probably I'll have to fine tune my swimming as well. Yeah.
Got it. And Ironman is probably famous for transforming people, right? How has it transformed you, man?
I don't know if it's transformative for me. I think it did transform my public persona, right? So a lot of people gave me lot much more respect and importance after doing the Ironman. So I would say it transformed other people than it transformed me much more. I've been a fitness freak for a while now. I love running. I like to stay fit. So Ironman was just another way to stay fit. I would say, right? It's not been transformative for me, but yes, it makes you very humble, right? The fact that you were involved in an activity right from 4 o'clock in the morning till 10 in the night. You didn't do anything, right? I mean, I had no breakfast, no lunch, no dinner on that day. My day started waking up and preparing myself for the Ironman, and my day ended after a light meal, which was quote unquote dinner at the end of the day. The whole day went behind that. So having done that, it kind of gives me that sense of confidence that I can look for bigger goals and targets. But if it's to call it transformative, I think it's a bit of an exaggeration, at least for me. But yeah, many people might not have done as much of endurance sports before they do an Ironman. It might be that game changer and might be that turning point for them where they might say that, oh, because I finished the Ironman, I was able to do so many more things after that.
Yep, yep, yep. And what has been your most memorable experience as an Ironman?
I think it was more about the event which happened before the Ironman. So I don't know if you're aware, but 31st of July, so my Ironman was 14th August in Kazakhstan, and 31st of July I had a bike accident. So I fell from the bike, and when we ride the bike really fast, we wear cleats, so the shoes are stuck with the pedal. And the unfortunate problem with cleats is that when you want to stop the bike, you need to uncleat. You need to disengage the cleat from the pedal before you stop the bike. And if you don't do that, you will fall because your legs are stuck with the pedal. So I was doing a 100k bike ride that day. I was back into the city after having gone on the outskirts to do the ride. And within the city, there are traffic signals, and I was approaching a traffic signal. And I thought the signal would change by the time I read the signal, but it didn't. And I had to immediately stop. I tried to stop, and I could not disengage the cleat in time. And I fell, and I tried to take balance myself with my left hand on the road, and that's why my left hand bore the brunt of the impact. And I immediately sensed there was something wrong. Got an X-ray done, and I had a hairline fracture in my left wrist. Now, getting a fracture, and I was told that the healing period typically for such a fracture is 4 to 6 weeks of complete rest. And I countered the doctor and I said, I'm not giving 4 to 6 weeks of complete rest. I can max give 9 days because after that I have a flight to catch to Kazakhstan and I'm doing the Ironman and I have to do the Ironman. I was very lucky that the doctor, the orthopedic himself, was a cyclist, so he could understand the craziness with which I'd approached him and put these conditions through. He gave me a splint to wear, and I was supposed to wear a crepe bandage when I actually do the event post the swim. Right for the swim, of course, I could not wear anything. But yeah, because of the wrist fracture, my swimming was slower because I was not able to pull as much water I could have done if my wrist was totally okay. I was feeling the pain, sensing the pain. But more importantly, the bike ride, 7 hours of biking for 180 kilometers, I was able to do it without any pain in my hand. No crepe bandage, no splint, and I was still able to uh, bike like a normal bike. And I think that made a big difference. So that remains my most uh, amazing aspect about my Ironman journey. And I was like, the reason I was goal towards doing this, I know there are probably 3-4 million Ironmans in the world. The number of Ironmans who did an Ironman with a broken wrist, very few of them. So that kind of gave me the confidence to go ahead and try and achieve the goal.
That's a crazy story, Atul. Uh, I think the idea of doing an Ironman itself is a pretty daunting idea, I will say. If not scary, daunting definitely. And the idea of doing it with a broken wrist is definitely uh, a story in itself, right? Uh, but I want to
Thank you.
uh, come back to certain things, Hetal. And I believe you have written a book, and you are an avid reader as well, right? You read tons and tons of books, and yes, that's
Yeah,
the book
that's
that
my
you have
goal.
written, Against All Odds. Yes, yes. I think the book is based on your dad, I believe, right? Uh, yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's my dad's biography.
yes, I read a lot too, but I have always wondered, and while I've been reading, I've always wondered why doesn't everyone read, right? Just like when you are a fitness freak, you wonder, right, why doesn't everyone run, right? Why is not everyone focusing on their fitness? I want to understand your perspective of on reading in general.
So I believe that if there is one true source of wisdom for life, it's books, right? It's not your school, it's not your college, it's not your work experience, it's not your running as well, right? What you learn from reading, there's absolutely no parallels, right? What people go wrong, where people go wrong, is in the type of books they read and limiting themselves to a few books and getting stuck with books which are not appealing enough, right? Any book, regardless of the millions of copies sold worldwide, might be utter trash for you. Accept that as a possibility. Accept the fact that just because everyone likes a particular book does not mean that you have to read the book. And I don't recommend books just because I don't recommend books with a point saying that, oh, you have to read this book. The idea here is to be able to read on a particular topic, not just one book. There might be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 different books which might talk about the same topic, which might pick up the same approach. Go after those books, read those other books as well, and that's where you will get true wisdom. On almost every topic on the planet, you will find books. Books are written by different authors, different writing styles, so there's a lot of variance as well. And of course, I'm referring to totally non-fiction books. For fiction books, I really don't need to spend time on this podcast telling people to read fiction. It's a non-fiction where there's a lot of information, self-help, autobiographies about startups, about health, food, nutrition. There's tons of stuff which you can read up and build up a stronger IQ, right? So I totally agree with you. Reading is a very essential skill. Somewhere during our childhood we lose it. I think we should not. We should try and sustain it as much as possible. Yeah.
I think what I've understood about reading and is that I was not a avid reader as a kid, probably, or as I was growing up. I picked up reading over the last 5 to 7 years. So what I've understood about reading is that uh, everybody has a particular genre that you will fall in love with. It's just that when I was growing up, I used to read a lot of fiction, right? I used to try reading a lot of fiction, and I would absolutely hate it. I couldn't get myself to read books like be it Sherlock Holmes or be it Nancy Drew and all of these Hardy Boys, and all of these books that would be in our library. I come from a very small town, and I couldn't find myself reading those books, and hence I stopped reading altogether for the next probably 10, 15 years. And after that, I started reading some biographies and some business books, and I eventually fell in love with books. I realized that all you have to do is to read a lot of books across a lot of genres and find your niche, find what you love to read, and that's when it just seeps into you. And once you start reading, you can't stop reading. That's what I've understood about reading in general. Yep, yep.
Yeah.
And
No, totally relate to you. I also was not an avid reader. I think 2018 is when I started reading, and I've not stopped after that. Right, so it's been a phenomenal journey since then, where I've really discovered the reading knack in myself, and I'm not going to give up now.
Yep, yep. I remember skipping certain work days just because I got so engrossed in reading. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's true spirit of reading, right? You forget where you are, you forget what you need to do, and you just only focus on the book in front of you.
I think I want to understand, Hiral, from you, what would be, say, three books or a set of few books that have changed your life? Yeah.
I'm glad that you said set of books and you didn't say three because it's very difficult for an avid reader to just narrow down and shortlist only three books. Art of Good Life by Rob Claudeli, um, Grit by Angela Duckworth, uh, Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, Andre Agassi's Open, and Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. Uh, I could go on, but uh, Breathe by James Nestor is again a phenomenal book, right? So lots of books. And trust me, I'm not even talking about single running book, which yeah. But yeah, if you check out
Awesome.
these books, they're awesome books, right? You would not regret the idea of reading them.
I've read a couple of books, and two of them remain one of my favorites. Actually, I've read The Power of Habit. It was one of those books that got me into reading. Actually, definitely among those five, seven
Yeah.
books. Uh, Brilliant book, I believe. And again, Shoe Dog. I think globally one of the best books by a lot of people.
Yeah.
Quoted as one of the best books by a lot of people. I think this journey of Phil Knight is one of a true entrepreneur. Nothing special about the whole story of Phil Knight. You get to know that I don't have to be special in any way to be able to do remarkably
Yeah.
good things, right? And I want to probably talk a little bit about the books that you've hated reading and also help us understand why.
Sorry, books I have hated reading.
Yeah, yeah. And also why? Why would you?
Okay. Yeah. Um, Look, I have disliked quite a few books, but unfortunately, I would not remember many of them. But one I do remember is Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. It's a bestseller, millions of copies sold. I just could not read it. I just could not get the hang of what the writer was trying to tell, and I kind of dropped it midway. But yeah, I think the fact that you don't like a book, the fact that a book does not get through you, is totally okay. There are enough and more books available on this planet, so you don't need to waste your single minute on a book if you don't like it. Typically, first 50, 75 pages is max that you need to give to a book. If by going through 75 pages, which is roughly about 20-25% of the book length, if you're not able to find the book appealing enough, the topic appealing enough, stop reading. There's no book which is unique. I mean, I'm saying that my biography is unique to a certain extent because it's a unique individual story. But self-help books, it's not necessary that only one book will give you the knowledge which you are seeking, right? There will always be other books which will probably be able to do the same purpose sooner or later. So don't be too hung up or too passionate about a particular book. If you're not able to, if this topic is not appealing to you, if it's not giving you that sense of connect, then you can drop it and switch to another book. That's a better option to look at. Yeah.
Awesome, Hetal. I think it's been a long discussion. We'll wrap this up with two quick questions that I have
Yeah.
for you, and both of them are
Go ahead.
the Ironman Triathlon. We'll do quick questions. One,
Yeah.
ये Ironman Triathlon event कैसा दिखता है? What are aid stations? How does the event look like?
So I think it's fairly well organized. I think right from the previous day where there's a race briefing till the post briefing where till the next day when you go and pick up your bike and rest of your stuff. It's pretty well organized. There are enough and more aid stations, especially during the run. There are lots of aid stations. In bike, the aid stations are fairly well spaced apart, but amazing volunteers, amazing support, lots of food to eat, lots of water to drink, lots of nutrition they provide. And I think the people, right? The people are most of them are volunteers. They're not getting paid for that activity. yet they are putting in the effort as if they are like their life depends on you, right? So, and of course, I've done only one, so I cannot vouch for all the Ironmans as far as support is concerned. But the one I did in Kazakhstan, yes, definitely very, very good people and a lot of support for the athletes. Yeah.
You mentioned aid stations. What are aid stations?
So aid
What are
stations
aid
are where
stations
you
in
would
a
probably get
triathlon?
some. So they would provide you some gels. They would provide you fruits, water, Gatorade, bananas. They would keep these few items spaced out. In running, they would be 2.5, 3 kilometers apart. In cycling, they would probably be at a 30-kilometer distance, 20-kilometer distance, and they tell you in advance where these aid stations are. So typically, we carry our nutrition along with us, but if we are in short supply or if we don't want to carry everything around, then these become a valuable source of support for us as well.
Got it. Got it. And one last quick question: how do you prepare for Ironman triathlon?
Yeah. So I just shared with you my training schedule, right? So that kind of ensures that you prepare mentally and you prepare physically. I think I've shared both of them, so I think that should be good enough.
Awesome, Hetal. I think we'll wrap up here. Thanks for coming on the show.